Let's rewind the clock. Long before fast breaks, logo threes, and TikTok highlight reels, the NBA was still figuring itself out. And right in the middle of that chaotic birth was George Mikan. In the early 1950s, Mikan wasn't just big. He was a 6'10" sledgehammer in a league full of guys who looked more like your local gym teacher. Nobody could match his size, his strength, or his scoring instincts. The guy was dropping 28 a game while wearing glasses. It was like watching a tank do ballet. But here's the thing, the league had never seen anything like him, and they weren't ready. He parked himself under the rim like a statue and just punished defenders. So, the NBA widened the lane, from 6 feet to 12 feet, just so Mikan couldn't stand there all day. That rule, known as the Mikan rule, a literal rewrite of the court dimensions. It was the league's first real panic move. But it didn't stop there, because Mikan's dominance also led to the birth of the offensive 3-second violation. Teams were tired of watching big men squat under the rim like they were camping for Black Friday. So the league said, "You've got 3 seconds, then move." That one stuck. To this day, you can thank Mikan every time a center shuffles his feet in the paint to avoid a turnover. This was the first time the NBA realized, wow, one guy can actually force us to change the way basketball is played. And the craziest part? That was just the beginning. If Mikan broke the league's calculator, Wilt Chamberlain broke the entire system. Standing 7 feet 1 inch with a vertical that could have qualified him for the Olympics, Wilt didn't just play basketball. He warped reality. He could dunk flat-footed, swat shots off the glass like they were flies, and sprint the court like a 6'2" guard. And he didn't just score. He devoured defenses. One night he gave you 73. Another, he grabs 55 rebounds. Oh, and then there was that one casual game where he dropped 100. So what did the league do? Everything. Rule number 1, offensive goaltending. Wilt was so tall and so athletic that he'd tap in balls that were still hovering above the rim, not coming down, just floating there. So the NBA tightened the offensive goaltending rules. You can't touch it if it's in the cylinder, they said. Translation: Wilt, stop cheating physics. Rule number 2, the lane gets wider again. Remember when they doubled the lane for Mikan? Well, they widened it again for Wilt, from 12 feet to 16. The league was like, okay dude, stop standing under the rim and treating grown men like traffic cones. So they pushed him out. He adjusted, of course, because he was Wilt. Rule number 3, the free throw dunk ban. And then we get to his free throw routine. Wilt wasn't exactly Steph Curry from the stripe, so he got creative. He'd take his free throws with a running start, launching himself from behind the line and trying to dunk it midair. Legal at the time, and terrifying. So the NBA stepped in again. New rule, you can't cross the line until the ball hits the rim or backboard. They didn't say his name, but come on, everyone knew. 3 major rule changes, 1 unstoppable man, and none of them truly contained him. The dude still averaged 50 in a season. He still led the league in assists one year, just because people said he couldn't pass. Wilt wasn't just dominant, he was the glitch in the matrix that forced the NBA to reboot. Before he was the league's all-time leading scorer, before the skyhook became his signature, and before the goggles became part of his silhouette, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was Lou Alcindor. And even in college, he was a problem. At UCLA, he was 7 feet 2 inches, outrageously skilled, and dunking all over guys like they were in slow motion. The NCAA watched this freak of nature tear through the competition and basically said, yeah, no, that's unfair. So in 1967, and this is real, they banned dunking. No joke. No more slams. No more tomahawks. Not even a casual 2-hand flush. Why? Because one guy was that dominant. The rule was officially about safety and sportsmanship, but everyone knew what was up. People literally called it the Alcindor rule. It wasn't just a tweak, it was a direct hit. But Kareem didn't fold. He evolved. With dunking off the table, he developed the skyhook, maybe the most unguardable shot in basketball history. One smooth motion, one arm extended to the heavens, and no defender tall enough or quick enough to touch it. Kareem turned a restriction into a weapon. But there's more to this than just basketball. The dunk ban came the year after Texas Western, starting 5 black players, beat all-white Kentucky in the 1966 NCAA title game. Then suddenly, powerful, high-flying play was outlawed. Kareem saw through it. He felt the rule was racially motivated, a way to keep the game in control. And he wasn't alone in that belief. The dunk ban stayed in place until 1976. That's almost a decade of basketball being reshaped to stifle physical dominance. But Kareem, he just kept winning. 3 NCAA titles, 6 NBA championships, a legacy built not in defiance, but in adaptation. They tried to ground him. He gave them the skyhook instead. Shaq didn't just play basketball, he crushed it. Quite literally in some cases. From backboard-shattering dunks to defenders bouncing off him like dodgeballs, Shaq's size and power weren't just unmatched, they were unmanageable. So how do you stop a 7 feet 1 inch, 325-pound tank that dunks everything in sight? You foul him, over and over and over again. Thus, Hack-a-Shaq was born. Teams started fouling him on purpose, even when he didn't have the ball. Why? Because he was notoriously bad at free throws. Career average? Just over 52%. Some seasons, it dipped into the 40s. The plan was simple. Stop the clock, send him to the line, and hope he missed both. But it turned games into a slog. Fans hated it. Coaches complained. Games dragged, especially in crunch time. So in 2008, the NBA finally said enough. They introduced a rule. If a player is fouled away from the ball in the final 2 minutes, the opposing team gets 1 free throw and the ball back. That single adjustment made it way riskier to foul guys like Shaq late in games, especially when they didn't even have the ball. This change didn't erase Hack-a-Shaq entirely, but it forced teams to think twice, and it cleaned up the end of games. And while the rule came toward the end of Shaq's prime, there's no doubt it was made because of him. He was too strong, too dominant, and too broken at the free throw line for the league to ignore. Allen Iverson didn't just cross people over, he crossed the line of what was legal dribbling in the NBA. His crossover was like a cheat code. Sharp, fast, and filled with hesitation. But here's the catch. He'd often slide his hand just under the ball. Technically, that's a carry, but it looked so smooth, so quick, most refs didn't call it, at first. Then came the pressure. Iverson's dribble style became so common and so hard to guard that the NBA didn't change the rulebook. They just started enforcing it differently. Refs were told to crack down on carries, especially on hesitation crossovers. Iverson was never named, but his film became the example. It wasn't just the moves either. Iverson redefined NBA culture. Tattoos, cornrows, baggy clothes. He was hip-hop on hardwood. But the league wasn't ready. In 2005, the NBA introduced a dress code. Business casual only. No chains, no jerseys, no oversized jeans, no Timberlands. Why? Image. The league wanted a cleaner look. The rule was aimed at players like Iverson without ever saying it. He pushed back hard, said it targeted black players and their culture. It sparked a league-wide identity debate. So Iverson didn't just make defenders sweat. He forced the NBA to change how the game looked, how it was called, and what image it projected. Michael Jordan was so good that stopping him felt illegal. So teams did everything short of breaking the law to slow him down. Hand checking, double teams, triple teams, hard fouls, you name it. Let's start with clear-out isolations. The Bulls used to empty one side of the court and just let MJ go to work. Everyone else stood around while Jordan cooked one-on-one. It was smart, it was brutal, and it worked too well. So in 1995, the NBA introduced new rules to limit illegal offense. Teams couldn't overload one side just to give a guy isolation space. You had to move. You had to cut. Offense had to look like offense. Then came defensive hand checking. Back then, defenders could put a hand, or even a forearm, on ball handlers, especially in the post. Jordan took that punishment nightly, especially against the Pistons and Knicks, and he still dropped 30 a night. Eventually, the league stepped in. They limited hand checking above the free throw line, then banned it outright in 2004. That created a freer, faster game. But it started because players like MJ made physical defense look futile. Jordan's legacy isn't just in the banners or the shoes, it's in the rules that tried, and failed, to keep him in check. D-Wade's pump fake was so nasty, it could have been banned on its own. He'd throw it, wait for defenders to fly by, then lean in, absorb the contact, and head to the line. Over, and over, and over. At his peak, Wade was averaging nearly 11 free throws per game. It worked, but it also slowed games to a crawl. So eventually, the NBA had to step in. In 2021, the league cracked down on unnatural shooting motions, jumping sideways, leaning into defenders, kicking out legs. All of it was now subject to no calls or even offensive fouls. The new rule didn't mention Wade by name. He had already retired, but it was his blueprint. Even in retirement, Wade's influence shaped how the game was played and how it was officiated. No one ever fought the refs like Sheed. He was passionate, volatile, and technical foul royalty. In 2001, Wallace racked up an insane 41 technicals, a record so wild it made the league reevaluate its entire punishment system. At the time, there wasn't much you could do. You got fined, sure, but that didn't stop Sheed from getting teed up seemingly every other night. So in 2005, the NBA had enough. New rule: hit 16 technicals in a season and you get suspended for one game. After that, every 2 techs equals another suspension. In the playoffs, you only get 7 before getting benched. Wallace didn't take it personally. He kept playing hard, talking trash, but now he knew the limits. The rule is still in place today, and Rasheed Wallace remains its loudest origin story. Each of these players forced the league to make a choice: evolve, or watch the game get broken. From free throws to fashion, from hand checks to hustle, these legends didn't just play the game, they reshaped it. Reggie Miller was the king of clutch, trash talk, and drawing fouls in the most annoying ways imaginable. He was a cold-blooded shooter, yes, but also a full-time foul hunter before it was trendy. His signature move? The leg kick. Reggie would rise for a jumper, and right as the defender got close, he'd kick out his leg just enough to make it seem like the defender fouled him. And the refs bought it. Often. The result? Trips to the line, sometimes game-changing ones. He weaponized contact in a way that drove coaches insane. It wasn't technically illegal, but it felt wrong. So eventually, the NBA had enough. In 2012, the league introduced what's now casually known as the Reggie Miller rule. If a shooter kicks their leg unnaturally to create contact, it's not a foul, it's an offensive foul. They even trained refs using Reggie's old clips, pointing out how his leg would slide into defender's space when the defender hadn't even initiated contact. That rule helped crack down on cheap fouls, 4-point plays, and fake drama. And while Reggie was long retired by then, his highlight reels literally wrote the tutorial. If Reggie kicked his way to the line, James Harden hooked his. Harden's rise to superstardom came with a blueprint: dribble, bait the defender, then lean in, swing up, or hook their arm and get to the line. He led the league in free throw attempts 7 straight seasons, hitting nearly 12 per game in 2018 to 2019. Harden didn't just attack the basket, he attacked the rule book. He'd go into his step back, see a defender overcommit, and launch himself into them like a heat-seeking missile. Arms flailed, contact was made, whistles blew, over and over. But the fans hated it. Opposing players hated it more. It slowed the game down, felt manufactured, and made defenders afraid to even challenge shots. So finally, in 2021, the NBA adjusted, without changing the actual rulebook. They redefined what counted as a basketball move. If a player jumped sideways or backwards, leaned unnaturally, or initiated contact without an honest scoring motion, no foul. Play on. The result? Harden's free throw rate dropped by over 28% that season, and so did league-wide whistles. The pace picked up, offenses adjusted. But make no mistake, that rule change had Harden's name all over it. LaMarcus Aldridge didn't do anything dirty. but his name is still tied to one of the most important instant replay rules in the NBA today. Back in 2012, the Blazers were up 1 against the Thunder. Kevin Durant went up for a jumper in the final seconds. Aldridge made a clean block, or so it seemed, but the ref called goaltending. The basket counted. The game went to overtime, and Portland lost. The worst part? Replays clearly showed it was a clean block, but under the rules at the time, goaltending wasn't reviewable. No one could reverse the call, even though everyone knew it was wrong. So the NBA stepped in. Starting with the 2012 to 2013 season, they created what fans now call the LaMarcus Aldridge rule. In the final 2 minutes of regulation or overtime, refs can now review goaltending and basket interference calls using instant replay. It doesn't slow the game much, but it ensures that one blown call doesn't flip the outcome. LaMarcus didn't shatter a backboard or cross someone into another dimension, but he helped fix a blind spot in the rulebook. Quietly, effectively. Imagine changing NBA history with just 0.1 seconds. That's what Trent Tucker did. It was 1990, Knicks versus Bulls. The Knicks trailed by 1, and there were just 0.1 seconds left. That's not a typo. 0.1. Somehow, Tucker caught the inbound, got off a full 3-point shot, and made it. Game winner. But here's the thing. Human beings can't physically catch and shoot in 0.1 seconds. The Bulls, including Michael Jordan and coach Phil Jackson, lost their minds. And they were right. The league agreed, so they changed the rule. That very next season, the NBA implemented the Trent Tucker rule. It states that 0.3 seconds is the minimum required for a player to catch and shoot. Any less than that, and the only valid scoring move is a tip-in or alley-oop tap. Now, every time there's a buzzer beater review, coaches, players, and refs immediately check the clock. If there's less than 0.3 seconds, don't even try a jumper. That's Tucker's legacy. 1/10 of a second, one shot, one rule forever. Rasheed Wallace didn't just argue with refs, he made it his second job. He was intense, explosive, hilarious, and perpetually in trouble with officials. In 2001, he racked up an absurd 41 technical fouls in a single season. That's not a typo. 41. It became such a problem that the league realized fines weren't enough. So in 2005, they dropped the hammer. New rule. If a player reaches 16 technical fouls in a season, they're automatically suspended 1 game. After that, every 2 more techs equals another suspension. In the playoffs, the limit drops to 7. Get your 8th tech in a title run? You're sitting out. That rule is still in place today, and Rasheed is still its poster boy. Even referees admitted his name came up during the official rollout of the rule. It wasn't just for him, but it was definitely because of him. Wallace made the game more emotional, more fiery, but also more chaotic. The NBA didn't want to kill the energy. They just wanted to cap the volcano. Kevin Durant didn't shout, flop, or dunk through the rim. He silently sliced through defenses. And when he found a scoring loophole, he exploited it like a pro. His go-to trick? The rip-through move. Picture this. KD's standing at the elbow, defender crowding. Durant holds the ball low, sees a hand reach in, and instantly swings his arms up through the defenders to draw contact. Boom! Whistle. 2 free throws. He weaponized defenders' natural positioning. It wasn't dirty, it was brilliant. And the refs called it a shooting foul nearly every time. Until 2011. That year, the NBA stepped in. They didn't change the rule itself. They reclassified what a rip-through move actually was. Unless Durant was clearly rising into a shooting motion, the contact was ruled a common foul. No more automatic free throws. This became known as the Kevin Durant rule, even though other players used the rip-through too. But Durant's long arms and smooth timing made it deadly, and nearly impossible to defend without getting baited. The fallout? Durant still scored at will, but his free throws dropped noticeably. League-wide, the pace picked up, and refs had a new example of what non-basketball movement looked like. The Durant move wasn't outlawed, it was just finally held in check. Larry Bird didn't force the NBA to rethink defense. He forced them to rethink money. Back in the early 80s, the league introduced a salary cap to keep teams from overspending. But they quickly ran into a problem. What if a team wanted to re-sign its own star? Should they be punished for loyalty? Enter the Larry Bird exception. In 1983, the NBA created a rule allowing teams to exceed the salary cap to re-sign their own players. Bird was the first beneficiary. The Celtics used this clause to keep him without breaking cap rules. And the rule stuck. Today, we call them bird rights. There are 3 levels. Full bird rights. Re-sign your player for any amount, up to the max, after 3 years with the team. Early bird rights. After 2 years, re-sign for up to 175% of previous salary. Non-bird rights. Less than 2 years, limited raises. This system lets teams reward homegrown stars without sacrificing team structure. It's how teams hold cores together and why massive extensions are possible even when the books are tight. Bird's legacy isn't just in clutch shots or trash talk. It's in how NBA rosters are built today. Every time a team re-signs their star while technically over the cap, they're living in Larry's shadow. D-Wade was more than a slasher. He was a foul-drawing scientist. And his experiments? They changed the NBA's rulebook. Wade's favorite move, the pump fake, contact launch. He'd jab step, hesitate, flash the ball, then wait for the defender to bite. The second they jumped, he jumped into them, sold the contact, and landed at the free throw line. It was masterful, it was efficient, and it was infuriating. In 2006 to 2007, Wade averaged nearly 11 free throw attempts per game. Defenders tried everything, giving space, staying grounded, but it didn't matter. The fake and draw became a cheat code. The NBA didn't act right away, but by 2021, with more players copying Wade's blueprint, Harden, Trae Young, even Luka, the league decided enough was enough. New emphasis, unnatural shooting motions, like sideways jumps, leg kicks, and lean-ins, would no longer result in shooting fouls. Jumping into a defender? No call. Hooking arms? No call. Flailing to exaggerate contact? Play on. The rule wasn't named after Wade, but his style inspired it. Refs even used his highlights in training videos as examples of what not to call moving forward. Wade's legacy remains untouched. Finals MVP, 3-time champ, icon. But in a world of pump fakes and foul baiting, he was the blueprint that forced the NBA to clean house. We've already mentioned Aldridge once, but his influence ran deeper than just a single goaltending review. After that missed call in 2012 that cost Portland a game, the NBA didn't just allow replays on goaltending in the last 2 minutes, they added basket interference to that same review protocol. So now, when a ball is tipped above the cylinder or slapped off the glass, refs can look again. They slow it down, frame by frame, and get the right call. It's rare, but it changes seasons when it shows up. It's the kind of rule you barely notice until it saves your team from disaster. And every time that monitor lights up in crunch time, Aldridge's fingerprints are there. In 2011, Derrick Rose wasn't just the youngest MVP in NBA history. He was also the most underpaid superstar in the league. At 22, he averaged 25 points and 8 assists, led the Bulls to 62 wins, and did it all while earning just over $5 million. Under the old rules, even megastars finishing rookie contracts could only be offered an extension starting at 25% of the salary cap. It didn't matter if you were MVP or a glorified role player. The system didn't make room for breakout greatness. But after the 2011 lockout, the league rewrote the rules. Enter the Derrick Rose rule. Now, players who win MVP, make All-NBA, or Defensive Player of the Year before their rookie deal ends can get extensions starting at 30% of the cap, a huge bump. Rose was the first to qualify and signed a $94.8 million deal right after. That rule changed how teams plan around rookie contracts, and it gave stars a faster path to max money. Players like Luka, Tatum, and Halliburton have all cashed in thanks to the Rose rule. Even though injuries slowed Rose's career, the rule he inspired made sure no MVP-level talent ever gets shortchanged again. You know your impact is wild when your name becomes a rule. And Zaza Pachulia didn't need all-star numbers to do it. Game 1 of the 2017 Western Conference Finals, Spurs versus Warriors. Kawhi Leonard was torching Golden State, 26 points in 24 minutes. Then Zaza closed out just a little too close, and Kawhi came down on his foot. Badly rolled ankle, didn't return. The Spurs blew a 23-point lead and got swept. That moment triggered a league-wide meltdown. Was it intentional? Was it reckless? Either way, it cost the Spurs their shot at a ring. The NBA responded quickly. They created the Zaza rule, a new interpretation that allows referees to call a flagrant or technical foul on any defender who invades a shooter's landing space, even if there's no intent to injure. It's all about the result, not the motive. From 2017 to 2018 onward, defenders had to stay clear or risk big-time penalties. And with video replay as backup, refs had the green light to enforce it hard. This rule changed how players like Steph, Dame, and Clay are guarded. No more sneaky foot slides. No more just contesting. Zaza closed the gap, and the NBA closed it right back. Derek Harper was one of the best on-ball defenders of his era, but also one of the most tactile. In the 90s, hand-checking wasn't just legal, it was a whole defensive philosophy. Harper, especially with the Knicks, made it into an art form. He'd press you full court, hips angled, hand on your waist like he was steering a shopping cart. And refs? They let it rock. It worked. Too well. Games turned into wrestling matches. Final scores in the 80s. Isolation-heavy, low-scoring slugfests became the norm. Fans? Not exactly thrilled, so the NBA stepped in. In the 1994 to 1995 season, the league limited hand-checking for the first time. No more using hands in the backcourt or above the free throw line extended. Only subtle forearms were allowed. Harper's game didn't vanish overnight. He was still crafty, but the tone had changed. By 2004, hand-checking was completely banned on the perimeter. It was a chain reaction that started with physical defenders like Harper and ended with Steve Nash and D. Wade lighting up scoreboards. Every blow-by crossover today owes a little nod to Harper because he defended too well, and the league had to unlock the offense again. If there was ever a man who screamed his way into the rulebook, it was Rasheed Wallace. He was a baller, no question. Four-time All-Star, NBA champion, one of the most skilled big men of his generation. But he also yelled at every single ref who ever stepped into an arena. And he wasn't just loud, he was historically loud. In the 2000 to 2001 season, Sheed set a record that still stands, 41 technical fouls. That's more than some players have in their entire careers. The NBA tried to fine him, suspend him, calm him down. Nothing worked. He'd get tossed mid-game, mid-argument, even mid-bench. So in 2005, the league made a rule. If a player hit 16 techs in a season, they'd get an automatic one-game suspension. After that, every 2 more techs meant another game off. In the playoffs, that limit dropped to 7. They basically built a technical foul speed limit because Rasheed wouldn't slow down. The rule didn't erase his fire, but it forced everyone else to think twice. These days, players still get techs, but they know exactly where the line is. And Rasheed Wallace? He's the reason that line exists. Trent Tucker was a solid role player, but he made his name in 0.1 seconds. January 1990, Knicks versus Bulls. New York's down 1. Only 0.1 on the clock. Tucker catches the inbounds and drains a buzzer-beater 3 for the win. Cue chaos. The Bulls, led by Jordan and Phil Jackson, went ballistic. That's impossible, they said. And they were right. The league investigated. Experts broke it down. To catch and shoot, a player needs at least 0.3 seconds. Anything less, it has to be a tip or tap. No full motion allowed. So the NBA made it official, the Trent Tucker rule. Now, if there's 0.2 or less on the clock, you can't catch and shoot, period. Only a direct tip counts. That one play in January changed how teams plan every late-game situation. Coaches know the rule, refs enforce it, and whenever you see 0.3 left on the clock for a miracle inbound, you're seeing Trent Tucker's legacy. This time, it wasn't a player. It was a bad owner who triggered one of the most important rules in NBA history. Ted Stepien took over the Cleveland Cavaliers in 1980 and turned them into a complete disaster. They weren't just losing, they were giving away future first-round picks for washed-up vets in panic trades. From 1982 to 1986, Cleveland didn't have a single first-round pick. Meanwhile, other teams built contenders off their scraps. The league had seen enough. So in 1984, the NBA created the Ted Stepien rule. It says no team can trade away its first-round picks in consecutive future drafts, unless they acquire another one to replace it. The rule still exists today. It's why blockbuster deals include protections, swaps, and complex pick juggling. It protects franchises from themselves. And Stepien, he became the cautionary tale every GM studies. They called him Chocolate Thunder, and when he dunked, the whole arena shook. Daryl Dawkins wasn't just powerful, he broke backboards. Literally. In 1979, he shattered one versus Kansas City. Glass everywhere. The NBA panicked. Weeks later, he did it again. So the league made changes, introduced breakaway rims that flex instead of snapping, switched to tempered glass backboards for safety, started fining and suspending players who shattered backboards. Dawkins didn't mean to destroy anything, he was just playing. But his impact forced the NBA to reinforce the court itself. Thanks to him, every dunk you see today, from Zion to Ja, is possible because the rim was built to survive it. These last entries, Zaza, Harper, Wallace, and the rest, show us something important. You don't have to be MVP to change the league. Sometimes it's a late-game shot, a hard foul, a wild outburst, or a broken rim that forces the NBA to evolve. It's not always about dominance. Sometimes it's chaos. Sometimes it's controversy. But in each case, it pushed the league to react, adapt, and ultimately grow. Whether it's protecting players, improving fairness, or keeping the game safe and flowing, every name we've mentioned left a permanent mark. Not just in highlights, but in the rulebook itself. They didn't just play the game, they reshaped it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a like and hit that subscribe button. We're diving into more wild stories that change the NBA forever. Don't miss the next one.